how did I hurt you?
You stabbed me.
I didn't do, and I am not sorry for the things I did do.
I have not 1 ounce of remorse for Teresa Ann's death. It could have all been prevented. All you had to do is let me see my kid. Now you're never going to see her again.
But now,
some killers beg for mercy. These men never did. They butchered their families, murdered in cold blood, and sat in court grinning, unremorseful, unapologetic. Their victims screamed for help, they didn't care. This isn't just evil. It's something worse. Here are 4 killers who showed no remorse in court. This is Ronnie O'Neal. In 2018, Ronnie O'Neal III committed an unspeakable crime in Riverview, Florida, a case so shocking that even seasoned legal professionals were left horrified. The incident began when O'Neal brutally shot and killed his longtime girlfriend, Kenyatta Barron, inside their home. But the horror didn't stop there. He turned his rage toward their 9-year-old daughter, striking her repeatedly with a hatchet until she succumbed to her injuries. He then stabbed their 8-year-old son multiple times, doused their home in gasoline, and set it ablaze in a failed attempt to destroy evidence. O'Neal was arrested as he tried to flee the burning home, but his young son miraculously survived, despite being critically wounded and suffering severe burns. The first 911 call came from Kenyatta Barron herself, screaming for help before the line abruptly cut off. Minutes later, O'Neal made his own call, falsely claiming he had been attacked by white demons.
911, what is your emergency?
Hey, I just been attacked by some white demons inside Kiki. Kiki, her name is Kiki, and she tried to kill me.
What's she at?
Despite being found mentally fit, O'Neal made the baffling decision to represent himself in court, leading to one of the most bizarre trials in recent history. He cross-examined his own son, who bravely testified against him, recounting the details of the attack. In a chilling exchange, O'Neal asked, "Did I hurt you that night?" To which his son responded, "Yes. You stabbed me."
I just hate him.
Did I hurt you that night of this incident?
Yes.
I did. And how did I hurt you?
You stabbed me.
Throughout the trial, O'Neal accused prosecutors of fabricating evidence, insisting that he was a victim of injustice. His complete lack of remorse was evident when he declared, "I am not sorry for something I didn't do, and I am not sorry for the things I did do."
I am not sorry for something I didn't do, and I am not sorry for the things I did do.
The judge, visibly shaken, described the case as the worst she had ever witnessed. Despite his continued claims of innocence, he was sentenced to 3 life terms plus 90 years without the possibility of parole. In a turn of fate, the young boy, now left orphaned, was adopted by the detective who had been part of his rescue that night, a chance at a new life after surviving a nightmare. This is Randall Moore. He was a man consumed by rage and obsession, leading to a chain of horrific events that would cost lives and leave a courtroom full of people in shock. His estranged wife, Teresa Ann Lynch, had filed for a protective order against him, attempting to escape his escalating abuse. But rather than letting her go, Moore did the unthinkable. He kidnapped and murdered her in cold blood. The situation escalated when police responded to frantic cries coming from an apartment. Officer Todd Rowland, one of the first on the scene, was shot and severely wounded as he tried to intervene. During a chilling 911 call, Moore justified his actions, claiming he only wanted to see his 7-month-old son. His words dripped with manipulation as he insisted, "I didn't want to do this, but I just wanted to see my baby." Shortly after, he surrendered without resistance. At his trial, the verdict was clear: guilty on all counts, including first-degree murder, kidnapping, sexual abuse, and attempted murder. When the time came for victim impact statements, Teresa's mother stood before him, unleashing years of bottled pain and grief. She read from her daughter's journal, revealing that Teresa had feared and despised him, a truth Moore had desperately tried to control. Despite the overwhelming evidence and emotional testimonies, Moore remained completely devoid of remorse. In his final statement, he made it clear he felt no guilt, saying, "And I'll tell you point blank, I have not 1 ounce of remorse for Teresa's death. It could have all been prevented. All you had to do was let me see my kid. Now, you're never going to see her again."
And I'll tell you point blank, I have not 1 ounce of remorse for Teresa Ann's death. It could have all been prevented. All you had to do is let me see my kid. Now you're never going to see her again.
But now comes the judge.
If anybody didn't know what a piece of work you were before you start talking, they know it now.
His lack of humanity even stunned the judge, who, despite being bound by the law, openly admitted that if harsher punishments were possible, he would have given them. Moore was sentenced to 3 life terms plus an additional 25 years for attempted murder, ensuring he would never see freedom again. This is Keith Ferguson. In Kalkaska, Michigan, a heated divorce dispute spiraled into a nightmare when Keith Ferguson went on a murderous rampage, leaving his family and an entire community shattered. Ferguson, 40 years old at the time, had been engaged in a contentious separation from his wife, Tiffany Ferguson. But what started as a verbal argument quickly escalated into a brutal assault. In front of their 4 children, he mercilessly beat her before pulling out a gun and executing her. The horror continued when he forced the children into a car and drove them to their maternal grandparents' home. There, without hesitation, he shot and killed his father-in-law, ensuring his wife's family would suffer as much as possible. In an effort to escape justice, Ferguson broke into a nearby home, taking the owner hostage and barricading himself inside. What followed was a 7-hour standoff with law enforcement, ending only when he was finally subdued and arrested. His trial was nothing short of chilling. In court, Ferguson's complete lack of remorse left onlookers speechless. When asked about his children, he stated, "I don't care to ever see or speak to them again." His disregard for human life was so disturbing that even the judge remarked, "You may not meet the clinical definition of insanity, but there is clearly something fundamentally wrong with you." Ferguson was handed a life sentence without the possibility of parole, ensuring he would die behind bars, far away from the family he destroyed. This is Michael Swanson. Unlike other cases driven by jealousy or rage, Michael Swanson's crimes were fueled by pure bloodlust. At just 17 years old, he embarked on a killing spree, targeting gas station attendants in Iowa, not for money, not out of desperation, but simply for the thrill of killing. His first victim, 47-year-old Vicky Bowman Hall, was working a night shift in Algona, Iowa, when Swanson walked in wearing a ski mask and brandishing a handgun. He demanded cash and cigarettes, but even after she complied without hesitation, he shot her point blank, ending her life in an instant. An hour later, he struck again, this time in Humboldt, Iowa. Sheila Myers, another innocent store clerk, fell victim to his senseless slaughter. Authorities arrested Swanson 60 miles from the crime scene, identifying his vehicle quickly. What made this case even more chilling was his own confession. In a police interview, he described how he aimed at the face because it felt more powerful. When asked what he felt after pulling the trigger, he simply replied, "I felt powerful."
How did you feel when you pulled the trigger? I felt powerful.
During the victim impact statements, the daughter of one of the slain clerks confronted him, demanding to know if he was even sorry for what he had done. Swanson, ever the cold-blooded killer, sat emotionless. The judge, clearly repulsed, handed down 2 life sentences. But Swanson's violence didn't end behind bars. Just 4 years into his sentence, he attacked a fellow inmate, slitting his throat in a failed attempt to kill again. Justice locked them away, but their crimes will never be forgotten. Some killers regret, these men never did. If given the chance, they'd do it all over again. Subscribe for more stories that expose the darkest corners of humanity.